Y'all, hey, welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for stopping by. Let me tell you what's going on. I'm so excited to start this vlog. If you saw my thrift store haul, you saw that I got the first two books in the Divergent series. I got Divergent and Insurgent, which, by the way, a friend of mine just took me to town over buying used books because whenever I get new clothes, they go directly into the washer because I won't wear like new clothes until they've been cleaned. And when I buy clothing as gifts for other people, I generally wash it before I give it to them so that they can wear it as soon as they get it. And he thinks that is the funniest thing. And he's like, well, if you wash clothes when you get them, you won't wear clothes that other people have touched, but you can't wash books. Books are filthy. So he thinks it is hysterical that I will read used books, but I won't wear clothes without washing them first. So I think he's nuts. I think that is insane. Is he wrong or am I wrong? Anyway, so I got Divergent and Insurgent. Well, then I ordered the third book, Allegiant. Is that right? So I got the 3 books. And I wanted to do a read with me vlog, and so that we could all, sort of read through the books and talk about them. And I was going to do spoiler free. Well, so yesterday I sat down and I was like, well, let me just read the first couple of pages of Divergent and make sure it's not awful. Because I didn't want to commit to this thing and then start reading it and it be just trash and me hate it. Which I know, okay, it was an excuse. I just wanted to start reading it. So y'all, I started reading it and I was like, all right, just one more page, one more chapter, 2 more pages, 3 more chapters. Y'all, I read the entire book, the whole thing in 4 sittings in one day. So now I'm done with Divergent. I'm about to start Insurgent. Is that right? Divergent, Insurgent, Allegiant? I may be making that completely up. But so I figured I needed to go ahead and start this vlog before I read the second book with no conversation, without bringing y'all with me. So let me get to the house. We'll talk a little bit about Divergent and my thoughts on that, because now I'm a little bit worried that y'all, I was voracious, could not stop reading. And when I was reading the end, I was so like this the whole time, the intern was just sitting there laughing at me. So let me get to the house. We'll talk a little bit about Divergent, and I'll tell you my concerns about Insurgent as I start reading it. So let me get to the house. We'll talk about these books and we'll get to reading. All right, I'll see you guys there. All right, so what do we think of Divergent? Obviously it was entertaining because I read 480 something pages in a day, which sounds daunting, but the pages look like this. And so, it's that wide set, sort of narrow columned print that you get in young adult literature. And it's young adult. So the character development was a bit shallow, but not in a bad way. I know shallow is bad. I realize that the word shallow is value laden and it's bad. But if you're familiar with young adult literature, you know that some of these books, you just don't need to know all that much about the characters. There's some backstory to these characters, and their stories develop as the plot line progresses, but they're just not very deep, and that's okay. Our main character is Beatrice, who's turning 16 at the beginning of the book. And in this society, 16 is a coming of age, and you have to decide which group you want to be a part of. The society is split into factions, and you have to pick which faction you're going to be a part of. So she chooses her faction, and when she goes to her faction, she changes her name to Triss, from Beatrice to Triss. So obviously that name change is symbolic of this big change in her. So we watch Beatrice as she goes through becoming an adult member of society. And I don't want to say too much because I want to see if I can get through all 3 books without spoiling any of them. And it's going to get challenging, I think, as we talk through books 2 and 3, not to spoil book 1. But we'll see. If I end up with spoilers later, I'll come back and edit this and let you know that I am actually spoiling things. But I enjoyed Divergent. There were developments throughout the book that weren't all that big of a deal. But then towards the end, about, I don't know, 300-ish pages in, maybe even more than that, y'all, there was a development that I was like, I remember I was on the Peloton and I was riding and I literally like stopped pedaling and went, what just happened? And it was off to the races from there. So book one was very entertaining. It kept me engaged the entire time. I was literally late for a class. So I teach online classes throughout the day and I have breaks in between. And I was literally late for a class because I was like, all right, one more page. And I'd had like 3 minutes before I had to be in class. And next thing I knew, I was 30 seconds late for class because I just kept reading. So Divergent was really good. It has set up the story. I think I would be okay if it just ended here. So I'm a little bit concerned about continuing to read. I'm gonna right now go and start reading Insurgent and see what I think. I'm fairly committed to read the trilogy. There's actually a fourth book. It's a trilogy, but there's a fourth book. What? The fourth book is called 4, not because it's book number 4, based on a character called 4. So I'm committed to read the trilogy. Like I said, I don't care all that much right now about what's going on, but we'll see. Hopefully it'll pick up quickly and things will start happening and I'll get into it right away. But I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit. The dogs have an appointment at the vet in about an hour, so I can read for a few minutes and then we're going to go do that. And then I have some more time this afternoon to read. So I'm going to try to get into it and I will let y'all know how it goes. I'm heading out to get on the bike, y'all. I have about 2 hours. Oh, I'm in the dark. Hang on. Come on, buddy. I have 2 hours to ride, so y'all already know that means I have about 2 hours to read. I got a bunch of reading done yesterday, and any concerns that I had about no longer being interested in the characters or caring about them have completely been assuaged. I am very concerned about the characters. I'm almost done with Insurgent, I think is the second book. I'm almost done with Insurgent. It did start off. Hang on, let me set y'all down. I have to put on my shoes. Actually, before we get into those details, let me tell you a couple things that I forgot to tell you when we talked about book one. I'm not even going to try to remember the titles. I'm just going to say book 1 and book 2. When we talked about book 1, I forgot to tell you that. I'm going to try not to do Velcro in your ears. I think we talked about how the books are dystopics, right? They're based on dystopic societies. But like we talked about, they're young adult literature, so it's kind of dystopic light. Y'all, I am not a fan of dystopic literature at all. Don't want to deal with people starving, making decisions that you have to make based on scarcity of resources and all of those things. And there's a little bit of that in these books, but just not a whole lot of it. So that's good. I told you that they are sort of striated societies. The society is broken into factions. Well, it's based in a city that's surrounded by a fence or a wall of some sort. And the city is physically broken into areas, and each faction has its own area. And the people in the factions join the factions based on skills that they have or characteristics that they have, and that's how they decide which faction they should belong to. So that's sort of the premise of the stories. So book 2 picks up right where book 1 left off. It's like the next day. And it did take me a minute to get into it, but y'all, once I got into it, it flew just like book 1 did. I think I mentioned I'm almost done with book 2. If I don't finish it on this ride, I'll definitely finish it today and get into book 3. Tris develops a lot in this book, and we see a lot of ramifications from things that happened in book 1 in book 2, not just with Tris, but with a lot of the characters, a lot of their interactions and relationships and interactions between the factions from book 1 to book 2. This is definitely not each book stands alone and you don't have to read one to read the next one. You have to read one. I mean, I guess you don't have to, but I'm not sure how book 2 would make sense if you didn't know about book 1, because book 1 kind of sets up the whole thing. So far, there have been some really emotional moments. I about cried last night. There have been some surprising, maybe not surprising, but some things that happened. You kind of hoped that what you were being led to believe was happening was really happening, and it wasn't really what was happening. So there's some of that where you try to believe good things for the characters and they're not necessarily what's going on. But I am to a really good point. I think I fell asleep last night mid-sentence, and I've been working this morning, so I haven't had any chance to read yet. So I'm going to jump on the bike, get into this, and then I will check in with y'all probably after I've had a shower and let you know how far I get, what I think, and where we're going from there. I have finished Insurgent, and I want to chat with y'all about it for a minute because I'm about to start Allegiant, and I don't want to get all mixed up in my brain about what's what and what I think about which, but I need to put my clothes in the dryer. So come with me. I hope my laundry room is not a shambles. It probably is. I'll go ahead and say that. And y'all, let me go ahead and say I am in fact wearing my plush Winnie the Pooh pajamas. I've been wearing them all afternoon reading, so if you're trying to get a gander and see what in the world I have on, that's what it is. So quit eyeballing me. So anyway, Insurgent was very good. I just want to talk about a couple of things because a lot of it is the same, but not like the same, but it has a lot. I mean, obviously it's the same characters, so there are a lot of the same characteristics from book to book. But I did want to mention, I feel like there are some interesting takes and maybe some interesting statements on, I don't know, segregation. Maybe, remember these books were written in like I think the first one was 2011, so probably 2012, 2013 was the second one. But the premise, as I mentioned before, is that society is divided into factions based on people's sort of main characteristics or abilities. And I don't want to say too much, but people start sort of mixing in spite of the factions that they're in. And you kind of get this sense of there being an importance of the similarities between people even though they're in different factions. So I know, it's like that age old, if we focus on things that we have in common versus things that are different between us, that will be united, not separated. I just kind of feel like that comes across in book 2, but not in a way that it beats you over the head. I don't feel like it's virtue signaling at all. I just feel like it's sort of an overall message in book 2. So those are my thoughts on book 2. Let me finish this laundry up and I'm going to go get started on book 3. I don't know if I'll be back tonight because I'm going to read for a while and then get settled down and just enjoy my plush Winnie the Pooh pajamas. So I might check back in tonight and I might just wait and check in tomorrow and let you know how it's going. Y'all, I just finished Allegiant. Oh my goodness. It's actually 2 days after y'all saw what a dumpster fire my laundry room is. I meant to finish this yesterday, but then I got a stomach bug. Have y'all had that stomach bug that's going around? If you have, bless your heart. If you haven't, then God bless you. Y'all, that thing is no joke. I think I died like 7 times yesterday. The intern got it Saturday, which was, 2 days before I got it. And then I got it yesterday, and then he like relapsed in the middle of me having it. So we were both sick yesterday. It was an absolute nightmare. But we are better. The point of all of that was that half the day I didn't even know who I was, let alone be able to read a book and pay attention to what was going on. So my plan to finish this yesterday and finish this vlog up yesterday did not come to fruition. So I'm here today to tell you that I did in fact finish Allegiant. Can we talk for a second about how beautiful this book is? Just look at the cover. It's absolutely lovely. This is it's the anniversary edition. It doesn't say which anniversary, but yeah, just the appearance of the book is beautiful. Have you ever wondered what would happen if everything that you thought you knew about your world and your reality was in fact not true? Allegiant. Without saying too much, let me just tell you that in Allegiant, our friends learned that everything they thought that they knew about their world, their lives, the people that they know, themselves, everything they thought they knew is not true. There are things that they don't know that affect everything. And we learn about all of that in sort of drips and drabs through Allegiant, and it makes everything from the other 2 books make sense, and not just make sense in the fictional Divergent sort of society world, but make sense in our reality, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know if it does. If it doesn't, then it might even be better that way, because then it's definitely not spoiling anything. But I knew I was going to forget to tell y'all this. One big thing about Allegiant, so Divergent and Insurgent are told in the first person perspective from Beatrice/Triss. And I didn't really even notice at all that we were getting everything from her point of view, because we got everything from her point of view. Well, in Allegiant, we get alternating first person perspectives from Triss and Tobias, which is really interesting. First of all, it's interesting that in the 3rd book in a trilogy, the author decides to make that switch. But it's also interesting how making that switch changes how we hear the story. And it kind of makes you think about things that we heard in the other books and realize that they're from sort of a myopic perspective just of Triss and from her point of view. And it makes you kind of wonder, not necessarily if what we're told by her isn't true, but how much of what we're told is influenced by her perspective. So I thought that was an interesting twist, not just from a narrative perspective, but from the perspective that it lets us get to know Tobias a lot better, because now we're inside his head. We're not just learning things about him from Triss. So I think that's all that I want to say about Allegiant. There's a whole lot more to say, but y'all, I'm so scared of giving spoilers from the other 2 books that I just don't want to say anything more. Let me wrap up by saying that I greatly enjoyed this trilogy. I think I would have liked it more if I'd taken more time to read it at a more leisurely pace, but I didn't give myself a whole lot of time to read the books. That was a mistake on my part. They are very good YA books. They are definitely YA. There's not a whole lot of character development, and the dystopia is dystopia light, which is exactly what I was looking for. So I do recommend the Divergent series, and remember y'all, you have to read the books in order, and I do believe that you need to read each book in order to read and understand and really appreciate the next book. Y'all, thank you so much for coming to my channel. If you haven't already done so, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I upload food and fitness videos on Mondays with some book videos sprinkled in between. See you on the next one.